Seven different things. Part of the, I guess we can put them in for. They write it down, I can. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That is our goal. Easy, easy, easy.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
You.
and good evening, and welcome to the Scarborough Town Hall for Candidates Night, November 2025. For the November election in 2025, we're coming to you from the council chambers. I'm Kevin Freeman. I'm your moderator. I'm a volunteer from the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation, and we are bringing you this event in partnership with the Scarborough Community Chamber. And I'm joined here tonight by the Chamber of Commerce President in Scarborough, Paul Beaver from Green Care Landscape Management. And I welcome Paul and SEDCO Director Karen Martin, who are assisting me, as well as Scarborough Public Library Director Chip Schrader. So we have the team together to bring you, and of course, the folks with the Scarborough Community Television back in the control room. We have a very intimate crowd here tonight. It's us and the candidates. And we're missing one candidate, and I just wanted to make note of Anthony D'Amelio is running for an open seat on the Scarborough Sanitary District Board of Trustees. Anthony is well known in Scarborough. He's lived in town for 30 years. He's been an engineer for nearly 50 years, was an electrical engineer in the design and construction of the Scarborough wastewater treatment facility itself. He said in his bio that his goal is to support the amazing infrastructure and dedicated staff that have worked so hard to maintain our system. In addition, it is my job as a trustee to make sure the people of Scarborough are given the best possible representation regarding operations, reliability, and maintain a cost-effective rate structure for this service. This is a different election in that we have 4 candidates all running unopposed. Tony D'Amelio is running unopposed for the Sanitary District Board of Trustees. And our first candidate that we're going to meet in person is Cressy Morer, who is running to fill the term of Alyssa Peterson on the Board of Education. Alyssa resigned, and Cressy has stepped forward as a candidate, and she is running unopposed to fill the seat through 2027. And welcome, Cressy Morer. Cressy has been with us at Candidates Night here over the last 18 months, the last 3 times. She's lived in Scarborough for since 2019, works part-time at Cabela's, and is the co-director of the Climate Security Initiative, which is forming as we speak. She's an enthusiastic gardener, walker, and nature lover. She joined the board of the Friends of Scarborough Marsh before it merged with the Land Trust. She has quite a background working at community levels, both domestically and internationally, including Brazil, Chile, and Peru. Her history of community service includes appointments to 2 town committees, currently on the Conservation Committee, volunteering as a beach monitor, 2 terms as a planning commissioner, board leadership of a Friends of the Library organization. She holds a Master's of Environmental Management from Duke University and an undergraduate degree from Pomona College. She was born in Peru, is fluent in Spanish and Portuguese, and she married a wildlife biologist and has 3 children, Conrad, Elise, and Ian. Welcome back, Cressy Morer. And you have 3 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's great to be here. I want to say that I sit here as the lone candidate for school board. Yippee. I really decided to jump into this race because there's an issue I really care about at stake on the line this fall: education. This fall, voters will make the pivotal decision on whether to approve 2 school bonds. In fact, the Portland Press Herald, an op-ed a few days ago noted that 500 out of Maine's 600 schools will need to be replaced between now and 2045. And this school bond that is before us makes Scarborough, one of the, Scarborough schools among those 500 that need to be replaced. There are many detractors and critics of the school bond measures in town. I will call out the concerned taxpayers of Scarborough, as well as possibly not so fast Scarborough. And there's already a no campaign underway. So I really want to be a voice, a positive voice in favor of the bonds. In my opinion, the no efforts, the opposition are short-sighted. They seek to blame growth and newcomers for Scarborough's deteriorating schools infrastructure. And the truth is that the problems the bonds seek to fix predate our last decade of growth. Our K-2 schools are 60 to 75 years old. Overcrowding, particularly in our middle school, has been a fact since the late 1990s. This is not a growth-induced problem. This is an old problem we've refused to fix. And let's stop kicking the can down the road. Let's pass the school bonds. I'd like to highlight the fact that Scarborough does have one of the highest ranking school districts in Maine. Maine's Department of Education ranks Scarborough 6th in the state in terms of school, quality and educational performance. But despite this ranking, we have seen a deterioration in our school academic scores, particularly at the high school. Since 2020, the share of Scarborough high students that simply meet rather than exceed the state expectations has increased. In other words, the exceed quintile has shrunk and the just kind of meets expectations has grown. And among those that do not meet expectations, the ones that far underperform, that share has grown significantly, particularly in math. So just that bottom quintile has increased significantly. And I believe that some of the reason for these, deteriorating scores is really linked to the explosion of children, and I will say even adults. I will count myself hooked on cell phones and social media. It's a contributing factor to this problem. The increased reliance on digital technologies and platforms to teach has robbed our students of the ability to solve problems independently and to work with their teachers and peers face to face. The challenge, in fact, research has shown that schools that have adopted a cell phone-free environment, they've seen their scores go up. They've seen cyberbullying go down. They have seen reduced distractions. They actually have seen kids actually checking books out of the library and actually talking to each other. So I know that this is a challenge we face as a school district. We've sort of a little bit punted it, but I'd like us to think of it in a wider context. That we now have an artificial intelligence invading every corner of our life. And this is and we have algorithms that are hooking our children on these platforms. And these tech oligopolies are mining our children's data and making money off of it. So we really have to think more broadly about this is not just a cell phone problem. This is a digital sort of invasion of our children's lives. And we, I think we should work as a community to see how we can lessen the degree to which our children rely exclusively on screens to learn and to interact with their peers. So.
Well, thank you, Cressy, and welcome to Candidates Night for 2025. What do you think you bring to the table? My profile is very similar to Karen Shoops, who's not here. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't really elect to run, because I think that she and I already have a very similar background in the area of conservation, our concern with growth. And I think, she has been a very good advocate on the council for those issues. And I don't see a need to try to replace her. I do, unknown to people, I do bring a real passion for learning and for education. I was on the board of a cooperative nursery school for many years. I saw the importance of early education, the huge benefits to students and to learning. So I bring that background, an appreciation of the importance of learning, an appreciation for literacy,
I did a lot of work working with bilingual children in a town where I lived in California, where 70% of the population in a rural area were first-generation immigrants and faced huge challenges in terms of literacy and language acquisition. So I have that little bit of that background. And I just have I think that the bond fund is really a critical issue. It's really why I jumped into this race. I think we need a voice out there to really galvanize the community to stop kicking the can down the road. Let's fix this problem. We're not going to be saved by the state. The state only funds the poorest communities. Scarborough doesn't meet that classification. We're going to have to bite the bullet. I understand that concerned taxpayers want to, are worried about the impact on property taxes, and I think there's things we can do to manage that. We can provide some tax relief to fixed income seniors, for example. There are solutions that reduce the burden on, the most vulnerable in our community while ensuring that we do have a fix for the schools.
Yeah, certainly that article that I read it in the Maine Sunday Telegram on Sunday, that the Press Herald had online, I guess, earlier in the week, but that breakdown of the condition of the schools across the state of Maine and many in southern Maine. One of the focal points of the article was the multiple elementary schools run in Bonnie Eagle in the MSAD 6 school district. And, it's clear from your opening statement that you're supporting the referendums, and I use that plural, referendums. How do you stand in terms of the 120, I'm going to have to use my glasses, 129.85 million for the K through 8 school building project and the 10 million for the middle school? These are separate questions.
Correct.
So how do you stand in your support of the two questions? Do you
I definitely
both?
support referendum one, with question one, which is basically that funds, upgrades and rebuilding one of our K through 2 schools. It actually fixes all the problems with the portables in the middle school and creates, new classrooms for the current, 6th graders who have been, this has been a problem since the mid-1990s. So the second bond, what it does is an additional 10 million, which depending on the value of your home on average will be an additional $6 to the property tax that you pay. That would add a second story addition. So instead of a single story addition, which will accommodate the existing 6th grade population, it would add classrooms so that as the school population grows, there is enough classrooms, you won't have to resort to portables again. So you will permanently get rid of the portables problem. No one will be coming back with hat in hand asking to fix the middle school again. So that is sort of, if you pass both bond funds, you fix the entire problem. If you only pass the first one, you fix 90% of the problem, but you do leave the issue of how will the middle school handle growth in the future. So that's and that is 129.9 versus would be just that, fixing most of the problems. The 10 million helps to fix all of the middle school's problems.
Thank you. You, in your opening statement and in reading it, I mean, you've got one child still in the
Yes, I have a
school system.
sophomore in high school.
He's a sophomore. Right?
I'm a very old mother. I had him at 45, so I'm called, but I'm a geriatric parent. So yeah.
You mentioned in your opening statement the use of cell phones, and this is we're 2 months into the banning of cell phones in the Scarborough schools, correct?
They haven't been schools, students are not allowed to use them during school periods, but they are not, it is not really a true bell-to-bell cell phone free environment. So
how is that policy in your opinion, how effective is it?
I think it's pretty effective. It depends a lot on how teachers enforce it and how much effort they spend. They're supposed to turn in their cell phones at the beginning of the class period, and then they can pick them up again. They can have them during the lunch period. You still then have the phenomenon of kids that, don't interact with each other between classes, and they're relying. So the advantage of a bell-to-bell sort of, where you would hand your phone over, it would be in a specific location or storage area, and then you pick it up at the end of the school period, a school day, is that you are going to be forced to have, conversations with people and interact and work with others. And you're going to be solving problems without saying, oh, quick, let me use Chat GPT, So you're going to have, between school class periods, you're going to have, no access to the phone. That's the difference. I do think it is an improvement that kids are having to turn in their cell phones each class period. But again, I think it creates an extra burden on teachers for enforcement. You have to take the time to make sure that no one's sneaking off with them, or, there's just a lot of, there's still a bit of a burden on teachers to manage that.
Your thoughts, and we have some people joining us. We're welcoming questions from the audience as our audience grows. But I had said to Cressy, as we were just the few of us volunteering here to put this on, that we were just going to have a conversation. What are your feelings about the curriculum, the current curriculum in the Scarborough School
Yeah,
District?
I think that we have some wonderful, if you are someone that is, college preparatory interested, there's quite a few options. And I know that there's also a vocational track. So I do think that that's really important to offer both a wide set of options. Not everyone is, the right college isn't for everyone. And, that's not, I'm glad we don't, as a school, only emphasize, college preparatory. However, we do have some fantastic, advanced placement courses. My children took advantage of, and one of my current sophomore is, thinking of taking advantage of in the future. And you have then a set of, step ups between basic, an honors course, and then an advanced placement college level course. So you do have there's a place for everyone. Not everyone is going to be, academically motivated, and there's a place for everyone. And I am happy to see that there are vocational options for students that would like to do something applied rather than college level.
From your view, as a parent and as a member of the community, and now a candidate for the Board of Education, school safety?
That's very important. I think that's one of the, so one of the things the bond measure would fix in some of our local K through 2s, the school entrances are not, you need these sort of double entrances that are specialized and especially designed to prevent, outside intruders from getting in. So some of our schools are so old that they don't have that. So that's just FYI, that's one fix. And I know that the current budget, the new budget funds school safety positions, and I think that are dedicated for that purpose. So I think we're investing in greater school safety. I do, however, worry about some sort of, helicopter parenting over. I just worry that we're, scaring students, and students have anxiety or fear based on, what potential for a school shooting. And I worry that is, that sort of, encourages, well, I want my child to have a cell phone so I can contact them constantly and know where they are. And I regret that. I know that that's a reality, and I wish that there was some way we could avoid that. But I do think that school safety is important. I know that the school district is making investments in new staff positions on school safety and in, upgrading the entrances to some of these schools so that they provide better protection for our students from outside intrusions.
Thank you. I can't help but think of the tragedy that the school district had with the untimely passing of
very sad.
Jacob Brown, who was, very respected. My kids had him in school, and he was just very well thought of by the student community and parents too. What role has or can the Board of Education have in providing that support for both faculty and students and families as we kind of move on
Yeah.
from such a tragic occurrence?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can step in to support our administrators, basically, be there as a listening, a sounding board. Obviously, request, provide funds for things like grief counseling. I think as a school board, you can think of, in times of tragedy, what kind of support systems do our administrators and our students need? And so that could be something the school board could really think more carefully about in the future, should we have a tragedy, either, loss of a faculty member or violence on our campus, sort of have good contingency planning for that so that we're prepared for that. I think would be the role of the school board. And of course, when such things happen, to step up and be seen and be, and back our administrators.
Yeah, my understanding was that there was a lot of support, counseling support that came from other school districts after that weekend tragedy. And it really kind of warmed my heart to hear that other towns helping,
Yeah, I think it's great to share resources, and then you can count on those resources when you need them, and support your, peer school districts when they need it. I think just shows what a wonderful place Maine is to live, and that people really do support each other.
So Cressy Moore is running unopposed to fill the term of Alyssa Peterson, who resigned her position on the Board of Education. It's a term that will run through 27, and Cressy is running unopposed. As are all of our candidates here this evening. I'm going to give you some time to put your thoughts together for a closing statement. I will let you know that this is Scarborough Candidates Night for 2025, put on by the Scarborough Community Chamber and in partnership with the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation. I'm Kevin Freeman. I'm your moderator. Joined here tonight by the president of the Scarborough Community Chamber of Commerce, Paul Beaver of Green Care Landscape Management out on Broad Turn Road, by Karen Martin, the director of the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation, and our Scarborough Public Library Director Chip Schrader on the time clock this year. And Chip has been with us since he came to town. We are going to be meeting our two candidates for the town council at 7 o'clock. Michelle Hayes and current councilor seeking re-election, Karen Shoup. So that's coming up here in about 7 minutes. But right now, we're going to hear the closing statement from Cressy Moore.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. So as I said in my opening statement, the main reason I jumped into this race is because there was nobody running, and I felt there needed to be a voice that clearly states why it's so important to pass these school bond funds and what's at stake. I'm hoping to galvanize our community to finally fix our school infrastructure problems. Schools and education are an investment in our long-term economic health. Education is not a pay to play or a pay-as-you-go service. I think a lot of people see it that way. I remember when I was, campaigning for town council, I had so many people say to me, well, I don't have any kids in the school anymore. I mean, so I don't want to support these bond funds because I don't want to pay for it, So, I would respond that most of us, for example, rarely call on police or emergency services or firefighters but we pay for them anyway. You know, they are an investment in the safety and well-being of our community. And most of us don't use those services very often, but we pay for them collectively. And I see education in the same light. It's a vital service. It is not, you know, my kid's not in there, so screw everybody else. You know, I really think that that is not how you build a community. I'm hoping that the town councilors that are running unopposed, like I am, will take a clear stand on the school bonds. Like myself, both Councilor Shoup and Ms. Hayes are very concerned with Scarborough's pace of growth. But I hope they do not blame the school problems on growth. I think that's, you know, causation, correlation is not causation. Just these things are happening in parallel, but I don't think the school problems are caused by growth. In fact, better managed growth is the key to capturing revenues that will reduce the tax burden on property owners. Both Karen and Michelle know that higher density housing brings in more revenues to cover services, including schools, compared to single-family homes. In fact, single-family homes impose a higher burden on the town budget than they bring in terms of property tax. So every single-family home we build, we kind of dig ourselves a little bit deeper in terms of the budget required to service those homes. So it is smart growth, not no growth, that is the key. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share my views. I encourage everyone to inform themselves, whatever your opinion, before the November 4th election. There's a wealth of information on our school website, which outlines in detail what the bond funds will cover and how they will be used. So I encourage you to go to www.scarboroughschools, all run together, .org/building-project. And you'll find all the information you need to help you inform yourselves on whether you want to vote against the bonds, for one of them, or for both of them. And just a reminder that early voting has already begun. And make yourself heard and get out and vote. So thanks again.
Thank you, Cressy Mora, the candidate for the Board of Education here at Scarborough Candidates Night for 2025. And you beat me to the punch, because I was going to mention that early voting actually started here in Town Hall, Chambers B, I believe, and right behind us. And that is early voting, where you register and vote at Town Hall Monday through Thursdays, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. through October 30th. So that we are already in election season. It is officially started. If you want a absentee ballot, you can request that in the clerk's office or online. Mail or put into a drop box must be received by 8 p.m. on November 4th. And that's the absentee balloting. And then for us people that just love to show up on election day, you can show up on November 4th at the high school from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
So thank you very much, Cressy. We're going to just take a short break, and we'll have our two candidates for the town council joining us. It's Scarborough Candidates Night 2025. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Candidates Night from the Scarborough Town Hall here on Tuesday, October 7th. My name is Kevin Freeman. I'm your moderator. I am joined tonight by my faithful partners in crime as we put this on each time. Paul Johnson, Paul Beaver. Here I am. I'm thinking of old counselors. Right, before you know it, I'll call you Peter Hayes rather than Michelle Hayes. But Paul Beaver of Greenscape Landscape Management, Green Care Landscape Management, is the president of the Scarborough Community Chamber. Karen Martin from SEDCO is helping us, and Chip Schrader from the Scarborough Public Library is our timekeeper. We're now moving to the town council portion of our program, and we have two candidates running unopposed for 3-year terms. First, I'll introduce the newcomer, Michelle Hayes. Michelle is a longtime Scarborough resident with 25 years of executive leadership with Hannaford Supermarkets. She's a past chair of the Good Shepherd Food Bank's Board of Directors and served for 6 years as an Olympia Snow Leadership Advisor, mentoring high school girls in Maine, and is a past board member of Kids First, Cumberland County YMCA, the Fiddlehead Center for the Arts, and Ketcha Outdoors. She's currently a board member of Thomas College and the Maine Community Foundation. Michelle is running for town council because of her ongoing interest in our community. I did want to say that you're also a business owner in Scarborough, and I'm going to try to get it right. Smith, Kjelgaard, and Hayes. And you do consulting of all sorts right here in town. So you're a business owner as well. Welcome, Michelle Hayes. Our other candidate is Karen Shoup, who is seeking re-election. Karen has served on the council for the last 3 years and has volunteered for the town for over 10 years. She enjoys meeting Scarborough residents and learning about their concerns and priorities. Her top priorities continue to be protecting our marsh and environment and slowing growth. And that's for sure in terms of your reputation as the environmental and sustainability and climate change. It's one that in the last 3 years, you've really earned a reputation of a supporter of those programs. So welcome, Karen Shoup. And we'll be, again, going over, I'm going to give you each time for opening statements, and we'll start with Michelle Hayes.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, everybody, for being here. And I also want to thank Karen for her past service and for putting her name in the hat and being willing to dedicate her time and her passion and commitment to the town. She has a busy career, and she's the busy parent of 2 busy children, and it takes a lot to juggle all that. So thank you to Karen and everybody else who serves. I've lived in Scarborough, since 1993, and I raised 2 children here. I have 2 children that went to the school systems K through 12 and graduated, had a great experience. My parents moved here in 2013 and lived in Scarborough the last 10 years of their lives and loved it as well. As Kevin mentioned, I was with Hannaford Supermarkets for about 25 plus years and spent a lot of time there in operations and running human resources and being very involved in the Scarborough community with the corporate headquarters here. I have been very involved in community leadership. I have a passion for the state of Maine, and just probably my biggest passion is feeding people and fighting food insecurity. Been involved with Good Shepherd Food Bank for almost 30 years and on the board and the leadership roles for about a dozen. I have probably, I was counting, but my math's not great, so I couldn't count that high. I think a dozen candidates over the last, 10, 15 years in town, whether they were running for school board, town council, some state positions, and really put a lot of effort into that. And was trying to find people to run this time and I was unsuccessful. And I woke up one day in Cleveland, Ohio in August and said to my husband, I'm running for town council. And he said, what? Really the tipping point for me, I think, was the growth. I've lived in Scarborough, like I said, 30 plus years. Every town survey we do says growth is the number one concern of people in town, and yet we keep accelerating growth. We grew by 25% in the last 10 years. I find that unacceptable, and I'm not against growth. I'm for thoughtful, planful growth, and for growth that benefits both the taxpayers, the citizens, and the developers. So I'm looking for better balance. And I know that we're running unopposed. When I put my name in, my papers in the first day, I thought I was going to be in for, a big competition. I'm still taking this as seriously and will work as hard as if I were running against people. And my biggest goal is to listen to people. I'll hold listening sessions. I want to hear from people across the spectrum to really understand how people are thinking and feeling about our town.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen Shoup, your opening statement.
Thank you. And thank you, Michelle, for your kind words. And thank you for stepping up. I think town council isn't for everyone. And so I think, either you're going to do it or you're not. So here I am running again unopposed, which is, it makes it a little bit interesting. It's not an easy job to do, but I think if you're passionate about improving your town and giving back and things like that, I think I grew up in a home where my mom was always volunteering here or there. And so it just kind of was embedded in you. And so, when I moved to Scarborough 20 years ago, I, joined the Scarborough Dems, and then I was like, I don't know. And then I did the zoning board and planning board, and planning board was probably the most impactful for me. I think at this point I can reference the development at Eight Corners and everyone knows what I'm talking about. And that was when I was like, oh, wow, planning board's not where I want to be. I want to be on town council so we can prevent that type of clear cutting and development and things like that. Democracy is a slow process. So even after 3 years, I feel like I haven't gotten done what I wanted to get done on the council. And so I really, as busy as I am, I have 2 kids. My daughter's 15. My son is 12. He'll be walking in from soccer practice very shortly. And I do, even if it's not going to benefit my kids, it is going to benefit, the people that live here and the people that want to move here. I think the growth has been out of control for a long time. I felt that Scarborough is not keeping up with the needs of its current residents. I still think we're not doing that a great job. I've really enjoyed serving on the finance committee the last 3 years because you really do have a hand in where you're spending your money because it's tough decisions every day. And so, have that opportunity to make those decisions and I think make conservation a priority has been a huge thing for me. I'm really proud of the 30 by 30 goal that we're working towards, that we've been plugging away at, our $6 million land bond that we got through. Finance committee has been great. We improved our bond rating, which is going to be really important when the school passes. And so I'm looking forward to another 3 years of kind of plugging away at the real issues we have here in Scarborough.
Thank you, Karen Shoup. We'll be alternating who goes first on the questions, but Michelle, you'll go first on this question. And we got 3 questions from the audience and 2 of them are on the hottest issue in town, as one of them says. It was a hot summer and certainly the reaction of the community this summer about growth, about specific projects, but in particular, and here are the questions that were asked, and Michelle, if you could respond. The hottest issue in town is the pace of growth. I would like to know what specific levers you believe the town has and does not have to control growth. The second question, which is also about growth, there's been a lot of publicity lately on Scarborough being the fastest growing town in Maine. What is your opinion of growth in Scarborough? So we have growth. What do you believe the town has for levers, and what does the town not have for levers to slow down growth?
Thank you. I'll just say I couldn't agree more with that being the hottest topic. It's probably 1 through 10 on why I decided to run. I was involved with, got involved with some people I didn't even know this summer on forming Not So Fast Scarborough. And it really was a small group of like-minded, frustrated people coming together to say enough is enough. No one's listening to us. Survey after survey says we're frustrated with growth, and yet everywhere you turn, there's growth. And I think the tipping point was I had been away a year ago, March, and came back, and I was driving through 8 Corners, and I just stopped, and I'm like, where did my trees go? Like, literally, there are no trees. How, if we're for the environment, if we're trying to protect the marsh, if our most precious resource is, water, marsh, fields, open space, I agree with everything Karen said. How can we then, on the other hand, literally clear cut an entire corner and then build, 120 apartments that are going for almost $3,000 a month, not affordable, across from a primary school? I mean, it was like every red flag went off for me as far as illogics. So how that happened, I just was flabbergasted. I think the town can do a lot of things. I think that everybody in a leadership role, and I was in a leadership role with an organization at a very high level, has power. They have influence. They can chart a path to the decision they want to have. I think our town has charted a path to, we want accelerated growth. Our town government has bragged about being the fastest growing town in Maine. It's been going on for over a decade. And I'm not against growth. I think Costco coming in is great. I think having, housing for people who live and work in town is great. I think putting in $3,000 apartments on a busy intersection next to a school that we're looking to double in size is a really irresponsible decision. So I think the town can make a lot of different decisions, and I think we finally have a groundswell of people who are willing to back making the changes that we need to make. I know Cressy mentioned the school problem being caused by growth. I don't believe that. My daughter was in the middle school the second year it was open, and there were already portables. But I think that we haven't planned well, and I think that if you're going to accelerate growth, you're going to need more fire people, more police people, more schools. The infrastructure has not kept up, and we haven't done good planning to know what our plan is to support all this development that we've approved.
Thank you, Michelle Hayes. Karen Shoup, and I can read the question over if you'd like me to. Would you like me to? Yeah, okay. So the question, the hottest issue in town is the pace of growth. I would like to know what specific levers you believe the town has and does not have to control growth. And then the second question is, what is your opinion of growth in Scarborough?
Let's start with my opinion. I mean, that's why I'm here today because, I moved to Scarborough 20 years ago because of what it looked like then.
Yeah.
And so I think for me today, I'm just like, to me, it does not resemble the town that it was like 20 years ago, never mind people who have lived here their whole lives or
Yeah.
longer than me. So if I feel that way after 20 years, I can't imagine how people who have lived here longer
Yeah.
feel. And so I think, I think I said this in I wrote a council corner article and I said, I don't feel like council cares. I wrote at our last meeting, I said, I have to convince 6 people. It's a matter of convincing 6 people on a council, all 7 together, to be bold. Councilors have the authority to, limit growth and change zones. I'll tell you right now, my example is tomorrow night on the ordinance committee agenda is a tree protection ordinance. They're proposing to only make it on town property. South Portland has it throughout the town, disallowing clear cutting, but we do not apparently have the guts or don't want to be bold enough to say, no, we're going to do like South Portland and say, no more clear cutting. You cannot just go and clear every tree you want. So I felt like from the beginning, being on council is always a compromise. And for me, you need to get with people who are saying enough compromising. You know what? Like, we don't want this to be, like I said, when the Dunstan TIF came, I said, Dunstan should not be a growth zone.
No.
I think we should change it. We need to be bold. And I think one of the levers is, having council come forward and also getting the information from the experts who are the staff and the people who support us to go in line with that. I do agree that I feel like the impact that we're feeling now is plans that have been in place for over 10 years and now they're only coming to fruition and we're watching them play out and we're going, oh, wow, like didn't realize it was going to happen this fast. And we didn't realize we wouldn't be able to keep up with the infrastructure and that the schools were going to be all bad. And so I really am hopeful that, the council in this year and the next couple of years is really going to be bold and take some action to change the direction of where we're going.
Thank you, Karen. I'm gonna stay with you with the next question. Which was, I'll go with this one first. In May of 2025, LD 1829 passed at the State House, which forces towns to adopt high-density development. It will take away any ability to slow development in our growth areas. What can the town council do to counter this law?
Perfect. So I think what you just said was exactly what I was said in my last comment was in growth areas. We need to change our growth areas. You know, to me personally, I understand that we have created the Downs as a growth area, but I think the feedback we've heard from residents lately, I am someone who drives through Dunstan. Dunstan is not a growth area. We don't want it to be a growth area. We're satisfied with the way it is. We also have a lot of environmental concerns in that area. So I think that is probably one of the biggest levers that is available to council right now, is to be able to change those growth areas, regroup, you know, and I think our comp plan, we're getting towards that 10-year mark where it's like, okay, it's been 10 years since we've really revisited it. We need to revisit it. Our town has obviously changed a lot. We have new residents with new concerns. I mean, generally, I think we're all a little freaked out by this legislation coming down. We're hoping that there's going to be some action to correct it, because I think especially as a community that has been the fastest growing community in the state, this is something that's going to just continue to cripple us.
Thanks, Karen. Michelle, I can read the question over, or
No, I
Okay.
think I'm fine. Thanks, Kevin. I agree with everything Karen said, and I think that as town leadership, we need to bond together. I think we need to be fighting this. I think we need to be talking to our state reps in Augusta and getting them on board and getting them understanding where the citizens of Scarborough are, and they need to be talking in the same voice as the folks that they're representing in Scarborough. So I think that we need to create alignment from the top down, from the town manager to the folks representing us in Augusta to the town council, to make that happen. And I think that we also should strategize to say, if we've been, as Ryan Vecto said, the Speaker of the House, Scarborough has contributed more than anybody and others need to step up. I couldn't agree with them more. And I think that people that haven't, I have friends in Cape and York and Kennebunk, in, you know, Cumberland and Falmouth and Yarmouth. And they say to me all the time, what is going on in your town? You guys are ridiculous. Like, you've ruined your town. And they've figured out ways to prevent things from happening. And I'm not saying we want to be them, but I think that we on this issue need to be really clear on what our contribution has been to date, that we should not have to be making a contribution at that level going forward. And I think that Karen and I and others need to work with leadership of all of Scarborough to get that message out and to be fighting that with one voice.
thank you, Michelle. Coming back at you with a question, I'm going to ask the question. Now, really, when Karen referenced Dunstan, and it was in that time frame where it really seemed to be the ire of a lot of residents was traffic through Dunstan, but also that proposed project at the Marshview and at the Marshview property on Route 1. At the same time, there was that consideration of a TIF district in Dunstan. How do you stand? What's your stance on TIFs in general?
I'm pretty much 100% against them. When the Downs happened, there were folks on the council that brought in experts from the outside, 2 different experts who said, this is an absolute no, this is a bad idea. Scarborough is not a town that should ever be doing this. You know, we're a hot commodity. If people want to be here, so why would we incent people to develop? They're going to develop anyway. I mean, I moved to Machias when my dad ran Cutler in high school in the Navy. Cutler needs that business, you know, Rangeley needs that business, Millinocket, J-Main, Rumford, Maine. There are a lot of places that need that incentive. Scarborough is not one of them. Do we see Cape doing that, or York doing that, or Falmouth, all these towns we compare ourselves to and the school districts to? No, that was, I think, the worst decision this town has ever made, ever. and I am 100% against it. And I think that we need affordable housing. And I think that unfortunately, the South Portland Housing Authority's situation ended up sort of being usurped by them trying to make it a TIFs district, which really galvanized literally hundreds of people this summer, as you saw. And I think it wasn't, they weren't just trying to bring in South Portland, then they wanted to accelerate it to make it a larger area. And I feel like they're tone deaf. So I am absolutely against what they were trying to do.
Thanks, Michelle. Karen, your stance on, or your stance on TIFs in general?
Sure. Yeah, so I think Michelle and I are agreeing on a lot of things this evening. I think I try to break things down pretty easily. So when I was in the finance committee meeting, I think I Googled TIF. And, I think when you just look at the basic definition of what a TIF is, I mean, it is a mechanism used for development. It's a
Right.
tool. And so I think, even looking back at what the Downs was back in the day, I appreciate that maybe it seemed like a good idea. I think we're watching it play out. And as looking at my budget just this week, we need to pay for more traffic calming solutions or deal with all the traffic. And it's like, where does, if we had that tax money, or would we be able to be dealing with this? It's really unclear about, how it works. And I don't really think it's been very beneficial to the town. I would say what's been really frustrating as a counselor was the fact that, the Marsh View, they came through with a great project. The location was really tough, but they just wanted a TIF for that one property. And yet somehow what came before town council was a whole TIF district, which seems completely against what the residents were asking for, what we were what we've been dealing with. And so I think that was personally frustrating as a counselor, because it's probably for South Portland Housing Authority as well, because, I think it really sent a message to residents that we wanted TIF district, which I think says growth, where we did not. We clearly voted it down, but I think to get to that point was a little tone deaf.
Yeah.
And so, I'm hoping that we can learn from that and, I think pause from that situation.
And earlier you referenced from 10 years ago, and as a board member of SEDCO, that when that whole Dunstan plan came out, it made me think of the charrette that was like in 2014 that discussed the development of Dunstan. And, it wasn't a new idea, but when you referenced, like plans from 10 years ago, that's kind of what that was. But the reception, obviously from the townsfolk was, well heard, I guess is a way to say it. Karen, I'm going to stay with you, for this next question. We've got the school bonds. We've got the big bond, second try, 2 questions. We've got our neighbors, Cape Elizabeth has passed an $85 million bond on the second attempt. Saco is got state funding for $100 million and $40 million of their own to build schools, down by across from Funtown practically. And we've got, with no state money, much like Cape Elizabeth, we're being asked to look at our schools. What's your stance on the school bonds?
Sure. So, obviously, I think it was a unanimous vote with the council to put it on the ballot, because, we have committees that put a lot of time and effort into it, and I appreciate the work that the committee has done. I served on the community service committee, the ad hoc committee to explore a community center. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from that was, no one likes big numbers, but I think big numbers are really hard for Scarborough residents. I really feel like our demographics are split. We have a lot of new affluent people moving in, but then we have people who have lived there their whole lives, or you have single parents like me who are just trying to, pay their bills and to be able to remain in Scarborough. So while we have, this problem with the schools, I'm concerned that the ask is so big when we put it all together as one. As someone I have children who went through Blue Point School and then the middle school. I do have concerns that we need to prioritize. Right now, there isn't a priority. It's one big package. I really hope it passes, but I really hope that we are able to focus on, I think the middle school is a major problem that we have here. But right now we have a really big ask for the residents. And the problem is, if it doesn't pass, it's not going away. And so I think no matter the concerns we have with it or not, I will also say that I think, the Eight Corners School location has changed a lot since they first placed it. And so I think that's something that I myself and other people struggle with, is maintaining that location. With that being said, we have a major problem, but we have a really big price tag right now, but the price tag is just going to keep going up. And so I think people really need to decide if this package, good or bad altogether, is what's going to help Scarborough move forward. I will say Scarborough has such a great reputation, especially their special ed. And so, I really hope that we're able to maintain that reputation. And I think that's really important by, passing the schools.
Thanks, Karen. Michelle, your thoughts on the school referendums?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One is, I think that something absolutely does need to be done, and I think it's needed to be done for a while. I think the middle school is really, if I had to prioritize, the middle school was a problem almost as soon as it opened. And I wish they had just split that out separately, because I think that people would agree that, there needs to be some work done there. I have huge concerns with basically doubling the size of Eight Corners where it is. I think it shouldn't be there. I think it's in the worst possible location it could be. It's like basically sitting on Payne Road, sandwiched between two terrible intersections, with a lot of, I don't know if I use words of crime, but just the amount of activity that happens on Payne Road and Walmart and that whole area. And now within a 140 apartment complex across the street, it doesn't seem like an ideal location for a K-12 school. I think it's up to the voters. I think that, I think everyone I talk to feels like we need a school solution. I think the number does scare people, and I think that, that may deter it getting passed.
Thank you, Michelle Hayes. Now I'm getting a little confused here. I can't remember who I doubled up on. I think it's, Michelle, I got to come back to you again.
You do.
So let's talk about traffic. I mean, it is, everyone talks about traffic in school.
They do. They do.
How do we, I mean, we have our AI generated lights
Right.
down Route 1, which it really can be an improvement. I work on Pleasant Hill Road and I live off of Broad Turn Road, and I swear, I think it's improved it a lot,
Mhm.
but the volume is something that really kind of drives it. But what are your feelings on how, as a counselor, how can you help influence traffic and transportation in Scarborough?
That's a good question. I think that, Maine being a more rural state doesn't have a lot of public transportation. We don't have a metro, we don't have a T, we don't, we have a bus, but I think that, the goal of trying to get greater utilization for any public transportation, I think, is not going to be met with huge success. So I think that, we have to realize that cars are the mode of transportation. I think that it goes back to growth. I mean, I feel like, when you put in thousands of units, whether it's at, the Downs, whether it's at Eight Corners, whether it's, off of Black Point Road, off of Broad Turn. I mean, the bottom line is you have a funnel that was built to accommodate traffic that existed 30 years ago. So we're using an antiquated system trying to solve a current accelerated issue. And I think that, I live off of Black Point Road, and to get from Winnicksec onto Black Point, I can literally sit there sometimes, for 7 minutes with traffic backed up at certain times of the day. I think we're going to need lights in more places, which I know people don't love, but is it more dangerous to have people sitting there just waiting to gun out between two cars? Probably not. So I think the traffic issue is real. I think that we can look at every intersection. We can't really widen a lot of the roads because we'd have to take property by eminent domain to actually widen a lot of the roads in town. But I think it goes back to my biggest frustration, which is why didn't we think of this 10 or 15 years ago before we were authorizing, 25% increase in growth? Do we think those people were all going to be bicycling to work? I don't know. So I think that we can strategically look at the problem we have and try to rectify it in a safe, planful manner. But I think we need to pause growth. We need to catch up on infrastructure across the board and then move forward.
And it's interesting as you were saying that, when you go over the town line into Saco,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of development and a lot of housing
Mm-hmm.
that are on that funnel right up to
Right.
one.
Right.
Karen, your thoughts on traffic and transportation in Scarborough?
Yeah, so Kevin, you touched on one of my comments, because I think as much as I, get frustrated by growth, I think we can't not ignore the fact that if you go just south into Saco, I mean, they have just completely exploded with
Yeah.
condos and development. And so I think, living in the Dunstan area, I feel like a lot of the traffic that we're experiencing is people coming through. So I think, people don't want Dunstan to be a growth area, then maybe we should make it 2 lanes like Saco and deter people from driving there. I mean, there are bold solutions and things that you can do to deter people. We are a cut through. People do not like getting on the highway and paying a
Right.
toll in Maine if they don't want to. That's why I didn't support the Gorham connector, because I was like, people aren't going to pay that dollar. They're going to still continue to drive around it. And so I think, we really need to think about where we want people traveling and keeping them on those roads. We have the Scotto Hill Road shut right now, which is a cut through, and that's a real debate. Is that a viable cut through that we need to, invest in again? Or is this really not a good cut through and we want to keep people on the main roads and things like that? I think one of the things that concerns me is, when we talk about budget and we're constantly contributing more and more of our budget to the traffic woes, are we really collecting enough impact fees?
Yeah.
Should we be collecting more impact fees from
Mhm.
developers? Because at this point, we cannot keep up with traffic. Just like the school, I
Yeah.
mean, we can't afford a school. So maybe we should be charging people in more higher impact fees, because at this point, I feel like it's falling on the shoulders of the residents.
Yeah.
And, something needs to be done to kind of change that. People aren't going away, but we can maybe try to deter them from continuing to travel that way.
Mhm.
When Route 1 is closed across the marsh, I cannot wait to see, I was not here the first time they redid Route 1 across the marsh. I don't know what that looks like, but that's going to really change some people's habits. And so that might be a good time to say, okay, where do we go from here?
And to know, those plans were kind of like, whoa, really? And Karen, I'm gonna ask you the question to start off is you have been, as I said earlier, and Cressy mentioned it before you came in the room, your reputation for really kind of being a protector of the environment and someone who is very well-versed in the climate resiliency and in climate change. And, think back to what we went through in April of 24, when we saw storm damage, that I've been here for, almost 26 years, 27 years. I'd never seen Pine Point undergo go through what it went through. How do we prepare as a community to face the climate and sustainability challenges that we seem to be facing here in New England?
Sure. So, I was talking to someone about being on the finance committee and just saying how, that's one of the places where you do get to have a little bit of influence. So on my first year, they get the budget before us, but we had specifically asked for an open space plan and a vulnerability assessment. And so council chose 3 years ago to add those to the budget and include those. And so I think, we said right away, we have some issues, and also our neighbors are doing the same things we are. We're all facing the ocean. We're all dealing with this. And so I think, we did our vulnerability assessment. It has come out. It is eye-opening, it's scary, but I mean, that is the reality of the situation we're dealing with. And so I think we now really need to think about what our priorities are and, where we need to deal with something right away or not deal with something. I live on Pine Point Road near Ken's Restaurant. And so, I mean, I was like, oh, Pine Point Road is closed. Ross Road is closed. It's flooded out by the Clam Shack. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I have my canoe. Like, and that's the reality of it now. And so I think that's where, when it comes to budgeting and like planning, I mean, we really need to be looking at that and planning for it because I think we're going to be doing cleanup instead of preparing is what concerns me at this point, is that we're
That's
never
the
going to.
Mode we're in right now.
It is, and so as much as you want to say, okay, we know that this is a very vulnerable area, I mean, it takes one more storm and we're like, okay, and that's just it. And we watched it on Scottle Hill and, we're removing Sawyer Street Road over there. And so I think these are the tough decisions we're coming with because it's just going to continue.
Michelle, your thoughts on climate resiliency and what we're facing from the.
I haven't read the results of the survey for the study. I'll be anxious to read that. We can't control Mother Nature. So there's that. And I think that it is a coastal, it's not even just a coastal issue. I mean, we go up to Rangeley a lot and so many of the roads, even going up there, were just washed out. I mean, the whole area is just, basically, decimated with, rivers and streams flooding and everything else. So I think that it's really more of a state strategy. I mean, I think we need to be really plugged into the folks in Augusta and also just partnering with other communities so that we're sort of pooling our resources and we're not all doing, if 12 coastal towns all do the same study, so we're going to pay some consultants, $500,000, maybe we have a rep from each town and we partner and we go in, on it together because the results, the findings and the results, and I think the recommendations aren't going to be different, whether I live in, Camden, Maine, or I live in Scarborough, Maine. I think too, when you take a look at zoning, I think we need to look at like, where are we allowing people to build? I live off of Winnicksneck and places that people have built on in the last few years, we're shocked. I mean, literally if we get 6 inches of flooding, those houses are getting flooded.
Yeah.
And we're like, how did that happen? So I think that, zoning and how close are we letting people build to the ocean or to the marsh, and trying to manage that, we do have control over that.
Yeah, it is something that, you just weren't thinking about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And, we have a camp up in Millinocket and for the last, the wind comes off Katahdin
Yeah.
and everyone's cutting down the trees around their camps,
Yeah.
because it feels more intense than it was 10, 15
It
years
is.
ago.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to, I'm going to stay with you, Michelle,
Okay.
I think on this one, right?
Yes.
Community engagement. We saw it in action this summer. We've seen, as Karen knows, repeated efforts by past councils to establish some sort of interaction with the community to surveys out to the public. And how do we build upon that? How as a counselor will you help build upon communication out to the community and continuing to engage the residents that live here in Scarborough?
It's a great question. I think a couple things. One, I think that we need to, work on our reputation. And by that, I mean, I learned this in corporate, don't do a survey with your associates unless you're going to follow up and tell them what you're going to do. And then you actually do what you say you're going to do. If you're going to do a survey, get results and do nothing with them, or do exactly the opposite, then you lose credibility. And at some point, people just aren't going to engage anymore. So I think when you take a look at the surveys we've done, which I think are important, And people have been clear on the top issues, and we've literally done a 180 against what people have wanted, which is to slow growth and to manage growth. I think we've lost a lot of credibility. So I think that we need to regain credibility. I also think Scarborough is a very diverse and spread out community. And you think about it, when you run for council, you're basically running in a huge town and there's like 25,000 people. I know that all those people can't vote, but it's a lot. And I was thinking about, if you're running for Augusta, you might only be targeting 9,000 citizens in Scarborough. So it's actually harder to run for town council than it is for a state position. And I think that counselors, I think doing small group listening sessions, like, having something down at, off 77 in Higgins, and then doing something out off Broad Turn in West Scarborough, and doing something down where Karen lives. We almost need to break the town into 7 or 8 regions, and then, send out invitations and meet with small groups of people that way. I also think people are more comfortable in a small session. I think when you go into a big meeting, a lot of people just aren't comfortable to ask a question or to state an opinion. So I think that, breaking it down more regionally, because I do think we need to talk to people more. I think we need to hear. And when I say hear, we need to listen, and we actually need to take action on what people are telling us. I think this summer, what you saw with Not So Fast Scarborough is it started out with a really small group of people, and then they invited, people they knew who were very interested. And then literally within 6 weeks, it went from 0 people to 158 people showing up at a town council meeting in August, and 100 people writing in, but it was really grassroots. And I think that we need to do that for the town. And it shouldn't just be on an issue that all of a sudden everybody's, outraged about something. It really should be consistent so that we don't get to those outrage moments, because we have our hand on the pulse of what's going on. We understand where people are. And I think, how there's a disconnect to me with, here's what people are saying and here's what town government's doing. So like, what's happening from, this is what they're telling us, but we're going to do this anyway. That's a credibility issue.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen Shoup, community engagement, communication, how can the council and you as a counselor help to keep the ball rolling on that?
Great question. I think it's really hard sometimes when you have to make decisions and no one's giving you any feedback at all. I will say one of the best things I saw that came out of this year was the Pine Point Association invited me to their annual meeting. And so I think it was just, going to things like that is great. I'd never been invited to one,
Yeah.
but apparently there are other associations throughout the town. They have these meetings
Mhm.
because you got to see them kind of do their thing and see what their priorities were, but then they had the opportunity to then speak to us and things like that. I will say one of the biggest feedbacks I've heard is we've been complaining about this for years,
Yeah.
but they're not complaining to town councilors. They're complaining to staff who is trying to solve their problem. They're
Mhm.
trying to solve their problem with all the other problems. But by the time it hits us, we're like, I never heard, And so I think it's being able to, I think people need to feel comfortable. I would like to be able to provide a more direct access, maybe a casual access. I think, our new counselor, Larry Kane, he's like gone great with communication. He has already proposed somewhat of that idea of like, we need to do neighborhood meetings. We need to get the pulse of like how, because Scarborough is so spread out and we have all these little neighborhoods and all these little associations and they all have their priorities and then we all have our priorities. And I think really getting a grasp of kind of what's going on within these little neighborhoods, because then you get to meet them, see what their priorities are, and then get their feedback, because I agree. I mean, I think I said at one of the meetings, we spend money on these surveys and what are we doing with them?
Yeah.
I think I had to do a little pushing for the ad hoc community center committee, but I was like, we did a survey and everyone said, if
Yeah.
we want a capital investment, it would be a community center. I said, so either we're going to take action and explore it or we're not, and we're going to completely discredit the survey if we
Right,
do nothing.
right.
So I think it's important to do the surveys, but I think with growth being the consistent feedback on our surveys, we can do better with responding.
Thank you, Karen. I lost my train of thought here, and I'm not getting any questions, you know, these are coming right off the top of my head here. Um, I have my thought back. Karen, it's gonna be directed towards you. So Scarborough's the envy of a lot of communities, a lot of people across the state wish they had the tax base that we have, the commercial tax base that we have, the balance of life science companies like IDEX here in town and Abbott Labs and, you know, the home of Hannaford corporate headquarters and all the retail choices. Remember when Scarborough, we used to say is a great place to get a pizza.
Yeah.
But now we have so many dining choices. How do we support the business community, especially in a time of a lot of uncertainty? How do we create an environment for businesses to continue to thrive and grow in Scarborough? And I mean from big to small, because we have a lot of small businesses in town.
Right. I mean, I guess I generally feel like businesses are doing okay in Scarborough. As a elected official of the residents of Scarborough, I would say I've been more focused on the needs of the residents of Scarborough. I do not hear from the business community that they're upset. I personally do not hear any negative feedback from the business community in Scarborough. So just simply as someone who is not in the business community, who has served on the town council, I feel like I have not heard any negative. For me personally, when I look at what our comp plan, I feel like the business community should be very happy with with what's happening right now. You know, we've taken a real step towards trying to create that balance with commercial within the downs and, you know, creating different zones and things like that. But, you know, I think the balance is also responding to what residents want and need. And so while it's nice to have that tax base to keep you low, you know, there's only so much that that businesses bring in here, where I want to focus on the residents. I don't really know how businesses feel in Scarborough. They're not coming up and saying your ordinances are negatively affecting me. I know they didn't like our setbacks, but you know, I mean, they're in here because of our beautiful marsh. So, you know, there are your setbacks. I think that's probably the biggest, you know, feedback I've heard from the business community was, you know, that we're not being development friendly by limiting it. But you know, business is not really my realm at all. And because we don't have the business community coming before us, you know, I wouldn't even know where to begin if they were looking, like if someone was saying, what would we do? I would be looking to business people to guide them.
It's very interesting to hear that perspective
Yeah.
because it is who contacts you, right?
Mhm.
Michelle, your thoughts as a small business owner?
Yeah, I mean, I have, as a small business owner, I have no complaints. But I don't think that means a whole lot either. I mean, it's like, you know, I have an office in the old Humpty Dumpty building and, my landlord's great and everything's good. You know, I know a lot of people that are in business and own business, and I have to say, I agree with Karen, like I don't get complaints from them. I don't hear a lot. I feel like their businesses are doing well. I would look at maybe Karen and, you know, I would want information from people that actually have those communication streams to hear what they're saying. Because I really don't know. I think that when I just look around as a consumer and as a resident, it seems like they're thriving. It seems like there's a lot of traffic. I think that we don't see a lot of open for rent, you know, storefronts like you do in a lot of places, like in downtown Portland. I think if you ask this question in Portland, you get a very different answer. One of my neighbors owns a restaurant in downtown Portland. I mean, they're really grappling with some nightmare issues. And I don't see that in Scarborough at all. I actually see a robust Route 1, robust, you know, businesses coming in. Like you said, we used to have, you know, Pat's and Amato's, and now we have like 7 pizza choices. But you know, I have to look around and it doesn't appear to me, you know, doing an observation that there seems to be a lot of struggle there. And if, you know, I'd love to hear from Karen or others to see if what they're hearing that I'm not seeing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was a question that was running through my head and
Yeah.
I appreciate your answers. Right now, I'm going to give you some time just to collect your thoughts. We'll have your opening statements and your closing statements here in just a minute or two. Candidates Night has been something that I've been involved in for over 20 years and really having a conversation, allowing voters to, put a face to the name and to meet you as a person. That's really our goal. And I think we've achieved that again with our program tonight. I do want to bring reference to two state initiatives that are on the ballot. Question one is the Citizens Initiative. Do you want to change Maine's election laws to eliminate 2 days of absentee voting, prohibit requests for absentee ballots by phone or family members, and end ongoing absentee voter status for seniors and people with disabilities, ban prepaid postage on absentee ballot return envelopes, limit the number of drop boxes, and require voters to show certain photo ID before voting, and make other changes to our election. So this is the question one, the Citizens Initiative, that is really the voter ID is what the label has been on it out there. That's question one. And question two is the Citizen Initiative. I guess I should have said it with the other one. This is more like the red flag, yellow flag. Do you want to allow courts to temporarily prohibit a person from having dangerous weapons if law enforcement, family, or household members show that the person poses a significant danger of causing physical injury to themselves or others? Those are two questions that'll be on the ballot for the state. And this being an off-year election, on the Scarborough one, you should be able to fill it out in a couple, 30 seconds maybe. We have 4 people running. The Sanitary District, Tony D'Amelio running for a 3-year term. Then the Board of Education, Cressy Moore is running to fill the term vacated by the resignation of Alyssa Peterson. And on the town council, our 2 candidates tonight, Michelle Hayes, running for the empty seat, 3-year term on the council. And I believe it was April Seither decided not to run. And Karen Shoup seeking reelection. And I got a chance, I think she might get it. Karen Shoup running for a 3-year term to return to the town council. So with that, I want to thank you both for coming, and I will go to Michelle Hayes for your closing statement.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the incisive questions and giving us a chance to state some of our thoughts and ideas that we hope to implement and influence folks on in the next 3 years. I guess a couple things I'd like to say just to sort of reemphasize why I'm running. My primary reason for running was really to slow growth and to, I think, really take a look at our ordinances and take a look at just how we're handling growth and to have a more thoughtful, strategic process to take a look at understanding the impact on our environment, natural resources, looking at zoning practices, and making sure that those zoning practices reflect the changes and the desires of the people that live in the community. To understand the impact on our infrastructure, we talked about traffic, we talked about, what to do with that. And I think just really taking a look at slowing things down and catching up to where we've been. And I think the last thing is that I really feel strongly about is just providing credible short and long-term financial stewardship of taxpayers' monies. The way I look at taxpayer money is the same way I look at my money in my checkbook at home. It's, how do I prioritize? What am I going to do this year? What am I not going to do? What can I afford to do? What's the impact? And I look at other people's money the same way that I look at my own money. So I look forward to partnering with Karen and the rest of the council. I look forward to getting to know many more Scarborough residents. And I would just say that I also want people to tell me what they're thinking, to give me their feedback and thoughts, and also to hold me accountable. So if I say I'm going to do something and you think I'm not doing it, I want to hear from you. And if I am doing it, I would love to hear from you as well. So I'm looking forward to serving Scarborough.
Thank you very much, Michelle Hayes. Karen Shoup.
Thank you, Kevin, and to the Chamber of Commerce for putting this event on. I always appreciate the opportunity to share my opinions and kind of just what my experience has been to date as a counselor. You know, it's not for everyone doing this. It's not easy work. It's not pretty. People like to complain, but I think if you kind of sift through the weeds, you do make forward progress. And I think I'm really proud of some of the work that we've done with our 30 by 30 goal. I think when we passed the $6 million bond for land bond money, I think that really showed, I think it showed council and the rest of everyone in Scarborough kind of how important conservation, our environment, and all of that is. And so I'm really looking forward to continuing to work on that 30 by 30 goal. I think, as I said earlier in my statements, I think after 3 years, I'm sort of starting to figure out what it's like to be on council and the things that you need to do. I'm hoping that as a council in a whole, we can be a little more bold the next 3 years and really respond to residents' concerns. And that's part of the reason I ran was, it's like I didn't push enough the first 3 years, and so I got the stuff, some of the stuff that we liked, but other stuff takes a really long time. And I think this issue of growth is a big beast that, you can come at from different angles. And so I'm really looking forward to kind of taking that on and dealing with the issues that we have coming with growth.
Thank you, Karen Shoup. Thank you, Michelle Hayes. And thank you for running. I mean, stepping up and putting yourself out there is, you have to be proud of what you're doing. And I know at times it can be a thankless job. So again, Michelle Hayes and Karen Shoup running unopposed for the Scarborough Town Council. And I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Again, Paul Beaver from the Scarborough Community Chamber of Commerce, Karen Martin from SEDCO, Chip Schrader from the Scarborough Public Library, and our crew here at Scarborough Community Television for just doing a great job of producing this event over there in the control room. So you'll see us on reruns right through election. I'm Kevin Freeman. Thank you very much for having us. Good night.